Hello, hello, and welcome. Let me turn my volume up, making sure I'm going live on multiple platforms. So, as I am checking that, let me know the name of your book that you are either currently working on or your book that's already out, so your most recent release. And then also let me know where you are joining from in the world. And today I got my tech in. Last week, Instagram was not cooperating, but today we are good to go. All right, so today we are going to be talking about why I let my audience choose my book title. And if you are familiar with me, then you know this is something I do for pretty much every book that I release. If you're new to me, I will explain the process and explain why I do this and also show how important it is, as well as why it's something you should consider doing for your book. So, let me know where you are joining from. If you're watching on replay, add hashtag replay into the chat. And I got multiple screens going. So if you see me looking back and forth, hey Donnell, thanks for joining over on Instagram. Then definitely that's why. So as you're coming in, let me know what your book is, the book that you're working on right now. Or if you're not working on a book right now, let me know your most recent release as well as where you are joining from in the world. All right, so today we're going to be talking about why I allow my audience to choose my book title. And this is something I've done for each of my 4 books that I've released on I'll say non-pen name books. And it's something I'm going to keep doing because there's a couple of reasons why it makes so much sense, as well as it's something that you can definitely incorporate into your book marketing and your book launches. Now, I will give the caveat, the examples I'm going to give are from nonfiction books, self-help books, business books. If you're in the romance category, if you're a fiction author, you can stick around. However, most of the advice that I'm going to be giving today and most of what I'm sharing is from my personal experience because I'm an author of nonfiction books. So that's just where I'm coming from. And I don't like to give advice on things that I do not know of because then honestly, it doesn't come from a place of validity. So I'm giving you advice on things that I know. And so I'm going to use my point of reference, which is being a nonfiction author. Self-help, my books are in the self-help space. I have devotionals, I have a cookbook, and my newest release, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, is going to be a business book that helps authors to be able to develop a process to create their own advance, so be able to pay for your publishing before your book is out. And so this is a strategy that I am actually plucking out of the book. I decided it was one that I needed to teach here instead of just waiting for you all to get a copy of the book to check it out, because this is something that can make a huge impact and it makes a huge difference when it comes to who purchases your book, who is going to be gravitated towards your book, who is going to be more likely to leave a review. And it also can work to curtail negative reviews. So if you are someone who is concerned about getting negative reviews, or if you're concerned about if your book is actually going to speak to your reader, then this is something you definitely want to consider doing, because it can help you to get that feedback earlier. It can help you to be able to get that information, so that way you're not waiting until your release day to see, okay, did I give this the right title? Is this the right thing for my book? And then I'm also going to pull up some examples so you can see in real time, because I like to show you things that are real and relevant. And I think that's something that makes me a little bit different than some of the other, let me fix my background. Some of the other folks that are out there is that and no shade to them, but that they might give things that are theoretical, but I test out the strategies that I use, and that's how I know that they work. So it's not something where you have to be concerned about, okay, is this one that's going to work for me? Well, I'll test it out. And of course, you're still going to test it out yourself. But having that real life data and having it where you are able to see, okay, this is working in real time, that's key. So, all right, now let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be talking about why I allow my audience to choose my book title. And if you are reading this or you're hearing me say this, you probably think, I don't know if I can do this. This feels like letting go of too much control. And if you're an independent author, if you are a self-published author, then you know that we like to be in control. That's part of one of the reasons why we decided to become independent self-published authors, is that we wanted to be able to have our say when it comes to what is our cover going to look like. What does it come? And I'm going to turn my light on for a second. A little bit more light. It's a little overcast today, but we wanted to have our say when it comes to choosing your book cover. You wanted to have your own say with choosing all the elements that come with your book. And so when you are allowing your audience to pick your title, then it kind of gives a little bit of that away. And so I'm going to tell you how to still maintain that without feeling like you're just letting all of that control go away. So with that, so my most recent book, as I mentioned before, is called Profitable Publishing Pre-Orders. And before I get into this point where I was opening up to allow my readers to choose the subtitle, I spent time researching, I spent time doing investigations and doing certain things to see what would be a good title. And for this particular book, there are secondary and tertiary, second and third reasons as to why I gave it the title that I gave it. And some of those I can't release just yet, but I will tell you some of the background on that. And so before you're doing this, or before I even think about, okay, letting my audience help me, I'm going to set some parameters. I'm going to make it so that there's certain things that I'm going to do so that it makes it easier for them to help me. And I think about, like, with my oldest, he's 5, and so he's like navigating coming out of that toddler phase, and he is making it so that he's able to kind of stand on his own and figure things out on his own, but he still needs help and support. And so your readers are the same way. They're trying to figure things out. They want to get a certain result, but they need some support from you. And so when you are doing something like this, such as allowing your audience to help you pick a name, pick your book cover, because though I'm talking about titles of books today, that's not the only place that you can actually have this be something that's relevant. You want to not make it a free for all. So you don't want to make it something where you are giving complete and total control over to your audience. You want to make it so that they're able to give you a little bit of support, but with guidance. And so that, for me, that looks like choosing my title first, getting that pinned down, and then allowing my audience to help me with my subtitle. And so that's a part that people don't always think about, because you might focus so heavy on that title and you don't really even consider how the subtitle can impact what it is that you're working on. And if you are putting your book up on Amazon, or if you're putting your book up in a place where you want people to be able to, in a place where people are able to search for your book, then that subtitle is a gold mine when it comes to SEO, so meaning search engine optimization, where people are able to pull up your book. And so it's very important to make sure you're choosing a title that aligns with the audience that you're trying to attract, because you want them to type in the things that, you want your title to match what they're going to type in, so that way your title comes up before they even know who you are. And I call it waking up to sleeper sales. So for example, I use this example from a while back. So years ago, people didn't know what their hair curl pattern was. It was either like kinky coily or straight wavy, things like that. It was not, oh, you have 3B hair or you have 4C hair. That wasn't something that was generally known by the public. And so if you were looking for hair products, you would not type that in. But now, because it's become more common that people kind of know their curl pattern or know their hair texture, then, or like their porosity, things like that, okay, if I'm searching for products, I'm going to search for these types of products, because I found out that that's the kind of hair that I have, and that's the kind of thing that works best with my hair. So you would want to make sure that whatever it is that you are putting in your title and subtitle align with that, so that way people are able to find you, and people are able to find you who don't even know you. Because I was talking to a potential client yesterday, and he was saying that he's in his pre-order period. He's getting some sales. He's a little under 100 sales, and he was noticing that he's getting to that point where I've asked my friends and family, and they've bought the book, but now I need to get people who don't know me to buy the book. And that's something that every author, especially self-published and independent authors, you get to that point where it's like, okay, your friends and family are only gonna be so many people. They can only buy so many copies of your book. Like, of course, hopefully, hopefully you're in a place where they support you. But regardless of if they do or not, at some point you're going to need to get past that section, because if your goal is to sell books continuously, you're going to tap out. Like, you have to go beyond that point. And so when it comes to your title, it's very important to set your title up in a way so that people can find you, and people who don't know you can find you. And that's what we're going to talk about today in terms of how I go through that process. And so going back, so the first step that I do is I do research to choose some parameters of what my title might need to be. So in terms of what maybe my whole title might need to be, but then I take a deeper look at it and I say, okay, well, I want to make sure that I am choosing words that my audience uses. Some of you may have heard me say before that for this book that I am releasing now, I had to shift my mindset from using the word pre-sale to switch it to use the word pre-order, because the audience that I am targeting, the audience that I'm trying to work with for this book, or that I want to attract for this book, not trying to already work with this audience, but the audience that I'm attracting for this book, they use the word pre-order because they're used to the word pre-order from Amazon, KDP pre-orders. And so they've adopted that name as opposed to using the word pre-sale. And that might seem like a small difference. However, it's something that can make a big deal, because if you are talking to, if you were talking to someone and you are not talking to them in the way that they are used to hearing, then you're going to lose them. You're going to not be able to connect with them. And so, for example, with this book, I knew that there were certain things that I wanted to use, certain words that I wanted to use that align with it, so that way it made sense to the person who was going to pick it up and read it. So your first step is to do some research. And I go deeper into this in a different training about how to choose your title. But for today, we're talking about how to choose the parameters for your title, how to research your title, I should say. But today we're going to be talking about how to let your audience help you choose it. So, and I'm sorry, not how, why you let your audience help you choose it. And so one reason why I allow my audience to help me choose my title is because it's a great way to increase engagement. And so we know engagement is the name of the game, and I'm going to pull up an example for you all to see. But engagement is the name of the game when it comes to social media, when you are advertising your book. And it can be so easy to focus on the likes and the hearts and the expressions and things of that sort, and not really look at the comments, and not really look at the shares, and not look at the deeper portions that are within there, because everything isn't about the likes. And it can be easy to think, oh, okay, well, this post only got 5 likes. Okay, but did anybody share it? Did anybody save it? Did anybody comment? And for this particular strategy, my goal was to focus on comments. And so I'm going to pull up an example for you to show, so that you can see an example of this. And so let me make sure my display, hold on one moment. An example for you to see, because it's so easy to get caught up in those likes and things of that sort. And so I might need to switch okay, there we go, perfect. All right, so this is an example of how I am asking my audience to share what they think I should name my book. And so this is from my Facebook group, So More Books, Author Marketing Made Easy. And I'll drop that link in the chat if you want to join the group. If you're already a member, go ahead and shout out the group in the chat. But with this, I did a little blurb, gave a little story, and I'll go ahead and read it to you. So a little while back, I did a training about choosing the right book title. Your title determines who will pick your book up, read, or recommend it. It's kind of a big deal. So now I'm in the process of finalizing the subtitle of my next book, and I need your help. And so I give a blurb of the book. And so I say, okay, the book's topic is hosting a profitable pre-order while building your audience and covering your self-publishing costs without crowdfunding or waiting years to make your money back. So you can publish when you want to and launch your book, to support your book goals. And so I ask people to vote below for which one they want. And so this is something I posted in multiple groups. I'm only going to show my group just for sake of not showing other people's groups. But so here, okay, there's no likes, there's no hearts, things like that. But there were people that saw it, and there were also comments. And so in the comments, and these are the examples I gave. So in the comments also, I'm able to ask people and follow up with their feedback and say, okay, this is what you said. Okay, well, why did you say that? Or thank you so much for your feedback. And so for this case, I'm going to use Cynthia because she's okay with being a guinea pig. So she chose B, then C. And the way in which I did it, I also wrote them in a particular way. I wrote B intentionally to be optimized for Amazon and other platforms that are heavy in SEO. And then C, I wrote to be very simplistic. And so I wrote these in a way that were contrasting, because I wanted to see what people would pick. And so going down to that, so she chose B then C, and then I asked her, why did she choose those in that order? And did it make her think of crowdfunding? Because in particular, I talk about not using crowdfunding. That's one thing in the book that it's just not the strategy that I use. No shade to crowdfunding. That's just not what we're using. And so with that, I asked her to clarify. And so this conversation and other conversations that I've had across multiple groups, as well as my email list, because I also sent it out to them and got feedback from them, it's something where I can now use this information to see, okay, what are some gaps that I am missing and explaining? What are some areas that I might not have considered that people see this book as? And then also, how are they going to perceive things when it comes to the book? And so in this case, for her, so let's look at her example. She said B. So B, the choice is how to pre-sell your book or your audience and pay for publishing before your book is released. And then her second choice was C. And so funding your book before it's finished. And so this is the one that I asked her about crowdfunding. And so let me go down. So she said B because it clearly identifies what the audience will learn in the book. And this part honestly has been the response that multiple people have given across the other groups and within the survey that I sent out to my audience. And they're saying that, okay, I can clearly see this is what this book is about. However, people have also said that they like C as well. And so I'm looking to her. So she also said, I actually think I prefer E over C because when you mentioned crowdfunding, it did make me feel like it wasn't specific enough for what you teach your audience. And she's familiar with my book, and she's actually one of my beta readers. And so she had a little bit of an inside look at things. However, this was also helpful because since she's read the book, she's about a little over halfway done. It helped to know what are her thoughts on what the title should be called. And so if you are doing beta readers, that's a good strategy to ask them to be able to also, and I'm going to switch back to my screen, to ask them to be able to give feedback on what they think the book should be called, because then you're able to see, okay, is it lining up with what they're actually reading? Are there things that I might not have seen or things I might have missed when I came up with the title? And it helps to recalibrate you to be able to say, okay, this is what you should focus on. This is not what you should focus on, or this is the message that these people got from the book. And if you are using an editor, this is something they can help out with as well, because they're going to be familiar with those recurring themes that happen in your book also. So the first reason why I let my audience choose my title is because it boosts engagement. So this gave me something to talk about with my readers with no problem. It was a very easy topic to ask them about. And then also, it gave me options of things to post. I hear often authors say, okay, I don't know what to post. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to write. And so this gave an option that was easy to do. And it made it something where even if people hadn't purchased the book, they could participate in this. And so the majority of the people who I asked about it, they hadn't purchased the book yet. However, it has now piqued their interest to be able to purchase the book. And so it becomes something that's a free piece of marketing that ends up being like a selling without selling. And so I'm not directly asking them to purchase the book, but I am asking them to give their feedback on the topic as well as introducing what the topic is about. And so if you're in spaces or groups where I know often authors are in Facebook groups or in communities where you're not directly allowed to sell, this is a way to let people know, hey, this is what I'm working on. But I want you to give me feedback on it without directly asking them to purchase it. Now, of course, this depends on the group. I was able to post this in 4 different groups and they were okay with it. However, I have a relationship with the host of the group, and another group is directly based on supporting authors. And so this was a topic that was relevant and was okay and fit in line with the group's rules. So just make sure wherever you're posting it, if you're using groups, that you are following those guidelines so that way you don't get kicked out or blocked. So with this, it also is something where the second reason why I allow my audience to help me pick my titles is because I'm able to hear valuable insights that I might not have been able to previously hear had I not asked that question. And this is so important when it comes to, for example, nonfiction books or even children's books, actually, especially if you have a children's book, honestly, because if you are working with kids, you know they don't lie. They're honest and upfront, and they will let you know about the book. And so definitely consider using beta readers for that. But even if you're not at the stage where you want to use beta readers, asking your audience to help you come up with your title is something where you can hear what they're thinking and you can hear how they might interpret what your book might be about based on that topic. So, for example, let's say one of the topics, so one of my subtitles I might have said was how to create your own advance through pre-order profits. Now, with that, creating your own advance is something that comes from the traditional publishing space. And so if you have never sought to traditionally publish, or if you have never even thought about being a traditionally published author, then you might not even know what that is. You might not even think about going that route. And you also might not gravitate towards that title because it's not even something that was on your radar. Many self-published authors are not even thinking about going the traditionally published route. They just think, okay, well, I'm going to publish my book because I'm going to publish my book, and I'm one of those people. And so when my book first came out, when my books first came out, I never thought, oh, let me go find an agent, let me go through the querying process. That was never on my mind. It was like, I need to release a book because I need the book myself, and I don't see it out there in the world. Thinking about that Toni Morrison quote, and I'm going to write the book. And so some people don't even go through that process. They don't even know about it. And then others, they're kind of jaded from that process. There's plenty of people who decided to be self-published authors who went through the querying process, who went through finding an agent, who got all these rejections, and they're like, I'm done with traditional publishing. I don't want to hear anything else about traditional publishing. And so obviously that option is not going to be the one that makes it into the subtitles. But I say that to say you have to use wording that you think is going to attract your audience and then test it out. So this is a test. Now, had I picked my own subtitle myself without getting feedback from my audience, then I run the risk of having these reactions behind the scenes, or having it where people, and when I say reactions, having people say, oh, well, I wouldn't have picked that book up because the title you picked is not what I thought the book was going to be about. And so getting that feedback from your audience, getting that feedback from people who are potential buyers, even if they're not current buyers, is key, because then you can have the option of course correcting before your book is out. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of pre-orders, because you get that feedback, you can have people to let you know, you can grow your audience, and then you can make those adjustments so that way you're not solidifying your book and then nobody buys it because you've done something on the back end that they didn't know about. Like you picked a title that didn't really fit, or maybe you designed a cover that doesn't really align. And so all of that is important when it comes to making these decisions about your book, is bringing your reader on your journey with you, whether you do a pre-order or not. However, y'all know, well, if you know me, then you know around here I support pre-orders because it makes so much sense for you to be able to get paid before your work is done, because you're working, like as a writer, you've been working possibly for months, years for some folks, to be able to get your book done, and then having it where you are not getting that feedback until the end, not getting that payment until the end. It just is backwards to me. So I don't operate like that. But so the next reason why I allow my audience to help me choose my title is because it gives options for me to be able to create conversations about my book. And it creates conversations in a way that's genuine. And so it also allows me to be able to give my readers a little bit of a behind the scenes look of what I'm working on, what I'm trying to figure out. And it kind of levels the playing field to let folks know, hey, okay, she is like me. And in my case, my readers are also authors. So I'm an author myself, of course. And so it makes it so that it's more of a level playing field. And it kind of takes me off a pedestal. And I'm not saying this in a way to be arrogant, but just in the sense of sometimes when you are building your personal brand and when you are growing as an entrepreneur, people can put you on a pedestal to think, oh, well, she doesn't have to figure these things out, or she never has self-doubt about XYZ, or she's never kind of in the lurch or in between certain things, when in actuality, all this is a test. We're all figuring it out together. We're seeing what works, and we are making it so that we're trying to connect with our audience. And putting yourself out there, being vulnerable with your audience, sharing things that they don't always have access to. So sharing the behind the scenes process of what it is that you're doing is huge. We know with a book launch, when you are letting people know about your book, then you're going to bring them on the journey. And so doing that involves letting them be a part of that process. And so letting them choose your cover for you to some degree. I probably need to do a video on that about how to do that while still maintaining that balance of you having control, but then also them feeling like they participate. And going back to an example with my students, or I'll use my kids. But back when I was in the classroom, my kids were my students were my kids. And so if it was a situation where a kid had something go on and like they were about to get their feelings hurt because they were about to get in trouble or whatever the case may be, I made sure to not put it on full display, but to let them know, like, hey, okay, you have these two options. You can either do this or this, and allowing them to choose, so that way they were a part of the process. They felt respected. They felt like they contributed. And so with your readers, they want to feel like that you're bringing them along for the journey. They want to know, okay, well, how is this happening? What's going on with this? They want to watch your book baby grow up, and they don't want to wait and say, okay, well, you wrote a book from nowhere. Okay, well, that's cool, but what is this book about? I haven't been able to see it. And I always relate this back to if you are an internet auntie or uncle with your friends' kids or even acquaintances' kids, and you see them post about their children, and then suddenly they've grown up and they've graduated or they started a job or whatever the case may be, and you think, Jessica was just in kindergarten. You may never have met Jessica a day in your life. However, you've been watching her from afar. You've been seeing her journey. You've been seeing her process. You've been seeing her parent post about that child, and you feel connected to them. Your book is the same way. So when you are hosting your book launch, when you are writing your book, it's the perfect time to bring people on that journey. And I didn't mention earlier, but definitely drop any questions you have in the chat. And then if you're watching on replay, let me know by adding hashtag replay to the comments, and I'll come back and answer your questions. But when it comes to allowing your audience to support you, one way to do this that I heavily suggest is allowing them to help you choose your title. And with that, of course, you are going to make the final decision. And so that's something when I coach authors, self-published authors, they say, well, I don't really want to let my audience decide my cover because then what if they pick something I don't like? Has that ever crossed your mind? Have you ever thought that when you've heard, oh yeah, let your audience vote on your cover? I had a client probably last year that was like, well, I don't want to do that because they might pick a cover I don't like and da da da. And that is a possibility. However, you can narrow the focus. So you can make it so that you have picked 2 covers or 2 titles that you like and that you're comfortable with, and then narrow it down from there. So from my example that I shared, going back to that, I have a few titles that I purposely put in there that I like a little bit better than the others. But I am allowing people to see all of the titles because they might say something to me, and I won't tell y'all which ones I like, but they might say something to me that sparks something else. Or I have the freedom to choose and say, okay, maybe I'm going to combine, because a lot of people like this part, like finishing your book before funding your book before it's finished. Maybe I'm going to combine that with something else. You have the flexibility and the freedom to do that as an author because you are the one who's in charge. So at the end of the day, you have the final say. However, that doesn't mean that your readers don't still appreciate being taken on the journey with you, and that they don't appreciate being able to be a part of the process because they're able to see how your book comes to life. And the benefit of doing this is that you can make adjustments before your book is done. You can make these changes. You can, I was going to say adjust. You can swiftly change things, because if you were to do this after your book is out, it's a much bigger headache to try to change your title, to try to change your cover. The cover not so much, but your title. It's a lot harder to change your title than it is to just change it now before things are finalized. So I'm at the stage where my beta readers are reading the book on the inside, and they're giving me tons of feedback, and I'll give an update on that as well. I need to do a reel or some stories or some a post about that, because they're giving tons of great feedback. And so the same reason why you would have beta readers is the same reason why you would have folks give you feedback for your title. And going over those reasons again, because it allows you to increase your engagement. It gives you options for things to post. It allows you to hear valuable insights from your audience that you wouldn't be able to get until later. And then it helps you to sell without selling. So it helps you to bring your readers on a journey without directly asking them to buy your book. Though, of course, you should at some point ask your readers to buy your book. Speaking of, if you haven't already purchased a copy of my book, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, this is the subtitle that I'm talking about. Then go ahead and either scan the QR code or visit profitableselfpublishing.com to grab your copy. And so it gives you a way to connect with your readers, sell without selling. And then it also gives you options that you can have for not only your current book, but future books, because there are some details that people have shown me in the chat of other groups as well as in this group, and through email, because they shared their feedback through a survey that I asked them for my email list, that those options are going to be things I can use for future books. I can use those for future content, videos, or trainings around certain things that they have created or certain things that they have said within that feedback, because then that can show me, okay, well, maybe they're missing a component maybe I missed a component that they need to understand, or maybe there's something I need to clarify. And so it just gives you so much valuable research or so much valuable details and things of that sort. So, all right, I'm going to check the chat and see if we have any questions. And also, as you're watching, let me know if this is something that you have tried before with your books, and or if this is something that you are going to try. And I was talking. I didn't even introduce myself. Just got right into it. So, I'm Ashley, the owner of Shep Publishing, and I help authors to publish profitably with efficient and effective marketing strategies so that they can sell more books, reach more readers, make more money, and change more lives. And so, all right, let me check the chat and get some water. Okay. All right, so I don't see any questions. I'm going to wait just a second more. And then if you haven't tried this strategy before, let me know if it's something that you would like to try. This is one that I go deeper into the process of bringing your reader on the journey, and this is just one of the small examples that I use from the book. And so I thought it was good to kind of expound upon why I do this, because it might be something you want to attempt, and it might make you feel a little bit more comfortable about trying it out. All right, so I don't see any questions. Thank you for tuning in, and if you're watching on replay, definitely add hashtag replay and add your questions as well, and I'll come back and answer those too. Have a good one.